Hey, this is Pradeep with Sensatura, and today I am sharing my impressions of the newest launch from the house of Parfum d'Empire. This is a November 2025 release called Madagascar Le Baume Vanille. Obviously composed by the brand owner and the sole perfumer Marc-Antoine Kurkdjian. This was initially announced for a September release. Seems like due to logistical issues, it got delayed a few times. Finally, it's out for the end of November. Now, this has been my most anticipated release of the year, at least since some of the new creations by Christopher Sheldrake earlier during spring. That's because of a few reasons. Firstly, the perfumer. I have a lot of admiration for Marc-Antoine's work, including some outside his own brand. I find his creations to have a lot of attributes that I enjoy in my fragrances, be it a cohesive composition, interesting inspirations, high standard for materials, emotional resonance, and so forth. And that would be extended to the brand itself. I have about 10 of their creations, Rouard, Tabac Tabou, Ambre Rouge, Mal Aimé being some of my favorites. It's one of the few brands that, even when I may not enjoy a release specifically, I find to consistently put out good creations. It's a rare trait these days for a 20-year-old niche brand, which is why it's one of the few houses that I follow with every release. It's also why, maybe leaving aside some legacy niche houses like Lutens, L'Artisan, Malle, early Amouage, holistically speaking, as a brand, I would consider them to be top tier. And the final reason is because I was curious about their interpretation of vanilla. On one side, it gets a bad rep for good reasons. It's just very trendy. It's been overused a lot as a note, gotten more and more sweeter, confection-like with its integration in tons of gourmand fragrances. On the other side, there are not a lot of fragrances that truly explore the depth of facets that a real vanilla bean can have. A lot of offerings on the market easily end up smelling cheap, synthetic, and overbearing. Obviously, depending on the type and quality of said material they use. I don't usually lean into a lot of vanilla-focused fragrances personally for that reason. I prefer it more as a supporting note, or when it's done to my liking, maybe with spices, lavender, other herbs, florals, as an amber, and so forth. L'Occitane, Eau de Beau, Hermès Elixir des Merveilles, Vanille Havane, Spirituese Double Vanille from Guerlain are some of the ones that I like. The later one being the most vanilla-focused composition. So when it was announced that Parfum d'Empire was doing a vanilla, it naturally piqued my interest. Because knowing the brand, I assumed they wouldn't be doing just another conventional, sweet, gourmand vanilla. There had to be something more. As expected, I was immediately impressed when I got to test it a couple of times since summer. Eventually, decided to get a bottle. So it's not a blind buy. I try to avoid that these days, apart from extremely rare circumstances. Which brings us to the fragrance in hand. It comes in the standard Parfum d'Empire presentation. Same box, bottle. There are notes explaining the brand, the perfumer, and the blurb about the perfume on the side of the box, which I will read now. Quote, "A balm for the heart, distilling the botanical treasures of Madagascar. A balm to savor, a fabulous drink reinvented with a generous trail. The opulent flesh of a vanilla pod, long macerated in rum, enriched with the spices of the Grand Ile." Unquote. It's apparently inspired by a beverage, an aged vanilla-infused rum that the perfumer got to taste when spending time with a friend of his in Madagascar. Having said all that, here are my impressions after wearing it a couple of times. It opens with this realistic, rich note of rum in overdose. In fact, smelling the bottle atomizer is like smelling an open bottle of rum. Incredibly boozy, warm, hints of toffee, molasses, spices, aged wood, with a rustic touch. Reminds me of a good Baba rum initially. It stays through the dry down rather than just the beginning. It actually feels aged from the way it comes across, but it is not overbearing by any means. In fact, it has a touch of freshness to it, some levity setting the stage for the development. Then I get the vanilla, As expected, it is rather different from the way it's usually done. Yes, it does have a measured sweetness, but what they seem to have done here is to treat it like an organic plant material rather than a confectionery note, going for something totally unadulterated. That makes sense. It comes from an orchid after all. The vanilla pods themselves are compared to beans. On the other hand, the perfumer has researched plant extracts for a profession. So apart from the sweet creaminess of a good conventional vanilla perfume, this seems to incorporate the warm, woody smell of the cured vanilla pods themselves, the leathery, spicy facets of the outer skin, the oily flesh, seeds, hints of honeyed sweetness, earthiness, and that smoked quality. Not smoky per se, but that smoked, bitter, rustic charm that's been acquired after drying and curing the vanilla beans. I got to smell some fresh vanilla beans being unpacked at a patisserie once, and that smell was just wildly intoxicating. It's not too inviting or pleasant before getting processed, and that kind of bewitching aroma is what this is reminding me of. In fact, I picked up some for the holiday season, so that's real vanilla beans there. If you have not seen a large amount of vanilla at once before, it's quite a sight to behold. It's got this mystical weight to it, even a bit sinister, like you have gone back to the days of the apothecaries, those dark pots being led to age and develop mature aromas in rum for days and weeks. Similarly, this feels straight out of the hedonistic world of Dorian Gray. The brand also mentions 3 natural extracts being used here: vanilla tincture, CO2 extract, and absolute. And that complexity definitely comes through on skin. Speaking of which, the rum and the vanilla seem to be the 2 pillars of this composition for me. As for the wearing experience, not necessarily balmy as the name would imply. The rum still has some transparency, sort of suspended, and the vanilla adding more depth, forming this full-bodied, rounded aroma. No surprise considering the inspiration. All the other elements from here on are kind of there to support, complement, and composite the individual facets of those 2 major anchors. More so the vanilla, just not in the predictable sense. It does have some good dose of warm spiciness, a noticeable tobacco, touch of leather, attributes of dried fruits, cacao, the usual combination. They just don't take over the vanilla like in Vanille Havane, Tobacco Vanille. They're all still present, but just as supporting players. Not too balsamic, does not have the dry, woody, dusty facets either. Instead, the tobacco seems to add to the smoked, sun-dried quality. Some sprinkle of clove, pepper, cinnamon, complementing the spiciness and earthiness. A shade of creaminess, which might be from the coconut, adding to the dark woodiness of the vanilla. In the late dry down, the dark, spicy, pungent remnants of the vanilla, spices, tobacco, tannic woods, and just a hint of rum is what is left. In summary, I think it's a genuine tribute to the vanilla pod itself, rather than an easygoing, sweet gourmand. And that's about it. In terms of diffusion, it's pretty good, overall moderate. At least from the initial wearings, it lasted throughout the day. Again, like I said, it is not heavy-handed like some other comparable compositions. In fact, the very first time I wore this, it felt like something was odd after 3 hours, something unpredictable happening. I even felt that with Ambre Rouge initially. Then later I realized it has the perfect structure to load up with lots of amber woods, other abrasive woody aroma chemicals. It's just that it is missing here, and that kind of felt unusual. Those kinds of materials have become so synonymous with this kind of scent profile, having tested a lot of spicy tobacco fragrances, to the extent that when a composition does not do it, it kind of takes a while to get used to it. After a couple of wearings though, I like it quite a bit. Thematically, it reminded me of some fragrances from the house of Lubin, ships bringing sacks of vanilla, exotic spices, tobacco, through the wild seas, in the night, from Mexico during the spice trade era. It has that talismanic quality to it, layered, multifaceted. There is just so much clarity and conviction here, as I expected, based on the other creations from the brand. Pricing is €140 for 50 ml and 200 for 100 ml, which is totally fair in 2025, possibly even a good deal for something of this quality. Occasions obviously leans colder weather, fall, winter, totally unisex in the traditional sense. It's truly an ode to Madagascar as much as the island's famed vanilla. Is it already a standard from the brand? It's definitely getting up there with some of my favorites. It's just that I have a stronger attachment with the more aggressive creations, particularly Ruad. Just think they are more distinctive. But still, this one met my expectations, which is a rare thing these days. Maybe Eshal and Sportono Barbicaglia are the only ones that did so far this year. As for vanilla fragrances, no doubt this is top tier. Definitely one of the handful of interpretations that I fully enjoy. In fact, I met a woman from the Reunion Islands, the same boutique in Paris, who was also there to buy this. She told me she isn't a fan of vanilla usually, but was so taken with this. Apparently it reminded her of her home and so forth. And I could totally understand what she meant. For Parfum d'Empire as a brand, I think this fills in the bracket for a vanilla note. Some of their best work has been in the recent years, which cannot be said for many 20-year-old niche brands. I think this only takes it further. If they keep going like this for another 5 years or so, I think they will be a Hall of Fame level of niche brand. For now, I'm looking to wear more of this in the coming holiday season. It's only fair to say, for me, it's already become one of the best of the year. So there you have it, my thoughts on Madagascar Le Baume Vanille from Parfum d'Empire. And as always, thanks for watching, take care and ciao.